Today we're talking about improv. I'm here with Dana Mitrov-Silvers. I met Dana last year and I became an immediate fan of the work that she does. She organizes these sessions where people are doing hilarious things, and introducing that inside of our workshops sometimes can be a little bit nerve-wracking. And so I attended a workshop that Dana did last week. It was actually a remote improv course where I think maybe 20 of us actually went.
Yeah, it's about 20 people.
Yeah, so 20 of us got to do some games and have fun and just basically laugh together. And it was really like a good way to end the week. So if you're in the course, we're talking about like laughter and bringing some lightness into some of the serious workshops that we do. So I thought we would spend some time learning with Dana today. Dana, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Dana Mitrov-Silvers, and I'm in the Bay Area, and I run a small consultancy called Designing Insights. And we do design thinking workshops, design sprint facilitation, and design research. And I've been taking improv classes for about 15 years. And I started doing improv totally separate from my design thinking and design sprint work. And it was just my fun hobby over here. And then I had my serious work over here. And then I started realizing that they were perfect complements to each other. And it made absolutely no sense to keep them separate, because everything I was doing in improv was completely connected to my work as a design thinker, a facilitator, a workshop leader, and everything in improv also just relates to life. I mean, improv is, I think of it as like training for life. So now I mindfully bring in many practices, tools, and methods from improv into my facilitation work. For me, it's so much more than just laughing and having fun, which is a big part of it. It's about building skills and mindsets and being really mindful about the skills and mindsets you need to be a good facilitator, a good design thinker, and really like strengthening and using those skills through games and play.
Awesome. Cool. So that brings us to the first big sort of topic that I wanted to dive in. I'm going to share my screen, but I thought we would start by talking about like why improv? What did you see that was missing in the conversations that you were having and facilitating in your workshops and your sprints, et cetera? And then maybe we'll talk about some of the challenges that you faced as you've been bridging what was fun and light and just improv into your work, into like especially corporate environments that tend to be, sometimes they're a little stiff.
I'll start with the first bucket I see is about flexibility. I guess I put flexibility and ambiguity together, because when you go into an improv situation, you have to be totally flexible because you do not know what's going to happen. And most of us in our work have to be flexible because we unfortunately can't control other people we work with. And improv is just all about being flexible. And life is like that too. And ambiguity, there's so much ambiguity in the world and in design work. When you're doing a sprint or a workshop, you don't know where it's going to end up. You get to that part in the middle where people get really, really uncomfortable. And improv is about helping you just sit with that, because you don't know where you're going to end up. And it just helps you flex those muscles. Another big thing about improv is that really builds listening skills. Because when you are in an improv scene, you have to listen to your partners because you don't know where it's going to go. You don't have a script. So all you have is your ability to listen. And this can easily translate to the workplace, especially in a human-centered design process. You want to listen to users, listen to customers, and hear their challenges. And in improv, you have to listen because you don't know where you're going to end up.
I think about co-creation and building stories together, and especially, I find it especially challenging when you're bringing individuals back together and everyone's really charged up about their individual ideas. You're like, cool, now you have to pick one. And not only that, but you have to build on top of somebody else's story.
Yes, and that's a good lead on when you said building on. That's the other thing that most people take away from improv, that notion of building on each other's ideas by saying yes and. It's this idea of taking what someone gives you and not just negating it or throwing it away, especially if it's someone that you have like past trauma or history with, but actually saying yes and building on it and seeing where you end up.
Yeah, the first time that I started practicing yes and, I found it
Mm-hmm.
almost impossible. I was like, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
agree with them.
Yeah.
But even then, you can still use the right language so that you're not cutting their legs out. You could still say like, I
Right.
hear you on that. And I also think that we can explore
Yeah.
this area here, because it's so amazing that the word but or no just
Mm-hmm.
almost ends the conversation. I had a group that I did yes and with in San Francisco. They were so excited about it. And they made like an oath in the workshop that they were going to start using yes and. And then for the
Mm-hmm.
next 2 days, I counted 77 buts
Wow.
in their conversation. And I didn't share it back with them to make them feel bad about it. I shared it back with them because I told them that this is a muscle and you're going to have to really
Yeah.
work at it. And it's going to take some
Right.
time. So don't beat yourself up if your language isn't perfect after a single workshop.
Well, that's the last one, is celebrating failure. Is the other big thing in improv is because you are going to mess up. You can't not mess up because it's not scripted. And when I'm facilitating in person, I try to establish that in the beginning of the workshop so that I myself, because I'm always going to make a mistake at some point, I'll just go, woo, okay, I failed. I'll tell. There's one more thing I would add is this notion in improv. One of the other big lessons is about making your partner look good. Because when you're on stage with somebody performing, it's not about looking good at the expense of someone else. It's about making everybody look good and supporting each other. And that's another, I think, lesson for work and for life, is like, make your colleagues look good, make your employees look good. It's about trusting each other and supporting each other.
Well, I thought if it makes sense, we can shift over to some challenges.
Sure.
Because, and I'm sure this is really important, because if you're in this course and you're thinking about improv, me personally, when I think about like incorporating mindful practices or not always using humor, which is like my go-to strategy. So incorporating something like improv is probably a little nerve-wracking, especially the first time that you're thinking about doing it, because
Right.
you think this is serious business. I was hired to create business outcomes and results, and here I am asking these corporate or these executives to play a game with me. So what are some of the big challenges that you've bumped into?
Well, yeah, there's that notion of, well, I'm a busy professional. Why would I do something so silly and trivial? People think work is the opposite of play. And there's tons and tons of research out there all about how important play is. I mean, there's tons of people who study this, that by playing, you actually do better work. So that's one of the challenges, is getting people on board with this and people understanding why this is valuable. And some people, you can appeal to them by giving them this kind of research and say like, hey, we're not making this up. People study this, academics and universities study this, that there is a lot of research showing that if you're playful and you bring games and play into your work, you're actually going to do better work, meaning you're going to make a better product or service and be more successful. Then this notion of time, another one, we don't have time for this. This is not about taking like a whole day and going off site. This is about doing maybe a 5-minute yes and activity before you go into like a generative brainstorm. Yeah. Another challenge is going back to that picture you have up there, that people think that this is about being on a stage with lights and being funny and being on. And it's actually not. It's about doing all these other things, about trusting each other and being in the moment and listening to each other. And then by doing all those things, the things that are funny will emerge naturally.
One of the things that came up in our session, which was remote, was a lot of improv that you've done and I've seen you do is in person, where everyone's standing in a circle and you can read the room and you can see people's energy. You can see other pairs that are laughing together. It makes it safe.
Yeah.
What have you done to help groups that are in these remote sessions?
Well, one is having your camera on. Personally, I think it's pretty important because at least we can see, even in a little tiny window, some of that body language, and we can hear each other too. So having your camera and your speaker on when we're doing a whole group activity is something that's really nice. Also, just kind of lowering our expectations that this may not be the same experience that we've had if you've done this in person, but it's still going to give you something really positive and give you a connection with people. A little bit, I don't know if this is a different challenge or that's part of it, that being the funny guy, there always sometimes is somebody who's like wants to be the loud, funny one. Or another challenge is people who are just so negative because like life and work. And I have to remind them, let's try to be positive in this 5 minutes that we're doing this and see what happens.
This is great. Should we play a game together?
Yes. So I think we should just do a basic yes and game because people love these. And it's funny, every time I'll do like a 4 or 5 day sprint and I'll ask people what they remember, and they'll remember the 5 or 10 minutes we spent on playing one of these yes and games. So I think they're so powerful. And I always do these before we're going into a generative phase, a brainstorming, sketching, crazy eights, whatever kind of generative activity you're doing, to demonstrate to people the power of saying yes and. Mm-hmm. So let's do it with a no but first. Cool. So let's say that you and I are planning a trip.
Let's go to the Empire State Building.
All right. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to throw out suggestions to you and you have to shoot down everything and say no but, why it won't work. Okay. So, yep. Hey Jay, let's go to the Empire State Building.
No, but there's way too many people there and I don't want to get coronavirus.
Well, I will get us like full bodysuits and like masks and gloves, and I'll have us like fully suited up.
No, I'm kind of like claustrophobic, and the idea of being wrapped in all that stuff sounds terrible to me.
Well, I will get a special suit for you that has like a virtual reality. So even though you're in your suit, you'll feel like you're in like an open field.
No, that sounds like it's just going to freak me out even more.
Well, I'll make some drinks for you before you get in the suit, and I'll show up your house with like a full bar, and I'll give you some drinks and get relaxed, and you'll put on your virtual reality suit.
No, but then if I get sick inside my suit, then what? I'm going to throw up inside my suit? That's not going to work.
And then I say, okay, time out. Okay. So then what I do after we play this is I ask people, like I would model this first and I would send them in a breakout room to play this. I'd say, how was our trip? What'd you guys notice? And like, what'd you notice?
Yeah. I mean, I felt bad because it wasn't the worst idea. And I just felt like I was shooting your ideas down. I was even like trying to come up with ideas to just chop you down. Mm-hmm.
Another thing people usually notice when we do this is say, well, you never made it. You never got there. Like nothing really happened actually. We just talked about it, but we never even made it into Manhattan. Mm-hmm. So like we stopped. Everything was blocked. Yep. So then I like to ask people, hey, does this ever happen to you at work in meetings? And everybody like raise their hand. Yes. I work with so many people who are negative and say, no, we never get anywhere. And we sit in these meetings and they shoot ideas down. So I say, okay, let's try it again. But instead of saying no, but we're going to say yes and to each other and build on each other's ideas. Where should we go? Where should we make our next trip?
Let's go to the beach. I miss the beach.
Okay, the beach. So, hey, Jay, let's go to the beach.
Yes, and I have a bike rack, so we could take our bikes and go for a bike ride as well.
Yes, and we could also bring surfboards on the back of the bikes.
Oh, you read my mind because I love to surf, and I have a whole bunch of surf wax and towels and all sorts of things, so we can make surfing really exciting and comfortable.
Yes. And why don't we hire some pro surfers to come and like meet us there and give us lessons, like pro surf lessons?
Yes. And I'm sure that they would love to come to New Jersey because we have the most beautiful beaches, of course, in the country.
Yes. And they'll start a whole new campaign for New Jersey. It'll be like the Garden State and the best beaches in the country.
Yes. And then we'll be able to take our surfing tour, this whole group of people that we've gotten together, and we can come back to California and do it there.
All right. So we could keep going. And then I say to people, how was that? What did you notice? So what did you notice?
Yeah. I mean, much more generative of a conversation.
Yes.
Like I wanted you to finish your idea so that I could on top of it, not waiting for you to finish so that I could cut you down. Very different.
Right. Right. And look where we ended up. Like you started with like, let's just go to the beach, and we ended up like all over the world with this program and surfing and design thinking and Fiji, it's like you get somewhere that you wouldn't have gotten.
Yeah. Wow. So thanks, Dana. This has been great. Lots of fun. A good hour of you and I sharing. I learned a lot. And I think the last thing that people will want to know is, when can they do some of these games? When is it appropriate to do yes and? When can you do word at a time story? And I know that you have these cards that you use to show all these different activities and when you use them in like sprint or other workshops.
Yeah. So I made these cards for the Google Design Sprint conference, and they are correlated to the different phases. So the thing we just did, the yes and, you would want to do that in a generative phase when you're ideating, when you're brainstorming. But I have other activities here that you would want to do like during the understand phase or when you're trying to build empathy. So I have different activities you want to do at different times to build different skills. So when your listeners check out these cards, you'll see what game works at what phase of the process and what skill it's building.
Yeah, really helpful. That's great. Yeah. Thanks so much, Dana. This has been great. I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this discussion with Dana, and I hope that you're able to bring some laughter, some improv into the workshops that you're doing.